the end of every original reference. But the story does not end here. After September 11, 2001, in a scandalous text, Baudrillard affirms the return of the event with the collapse of the two World Trade Center buildings. This spell of simulation also ended together with the infinite duplication effect, whose metaphor had already been found in his 1976 text on the Twin Towers, where they had appeared as the towers of digital replication. The spirit of general intellect is precisely this: to escape from paranoia, to create zones of human resistance, to experiment with autonomous forms of production based on high-tech, low-tech energy models, to interpolate the people with a language that is more therapeutic than political. Capitalism will not disappear from the global landscape, but it will lose its pervasive paradigmatic role in our semiotization. It will become one of possible form of social organization. Freud said